Hello, and welcome back to another AWS She Builds Tech Skills conversation. So this is not our typical conversation. You may be noticing that by our special guest as my co-host today. So let's just say it's going to be a little bit of fun. It's going to be a powerful hour. And Deanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Deanne Kane. I'm a senior technical recruiter for the Customer Solutions Manager org within Amazon Web Services, and we're so excited to have you here with us today.
Awesome. And we have to give Deanne special kudos in the chat because if you aren't familiar with the hurricane that's going on the East Coast, it's currently hitting Deanne's area, and we're hoping everything stays well on the technical side. But for any of our East Coasters that have been having the fun of the rain, the wind, and the hurricane, stay safe out there and have some fun with it. We're going to be talking about the CSM role, or Customer Solutions Manager role. And Deanne's here to help us have that conversation. We're also going to be talking to Dana and Mary about their experience in the role, as both of them have been in the role for a bit and have had a lot of success. So with that, we're actually going to hop right into our pre-recorded session. Ask questions in the chat, keep the comments going, and then we are going to have a little surprise at the end and have everybody back together to deep dive into any questions you may have that we weren't able to cover in the pre-recorded section. So without further ado, let's hop into the recording. Mary, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your personal journey that led you to AWS CSM role and what attracted you to the position? Any past experiences that may have brought you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, my name is Mary Snell. I'm a senior customer solutions manager for AWS. I've been here for right at 2 years now, supporting customers who are digital native businesses. So customers who have essentially grown their businesses within the cloud. What attracted me to this role was the way that CSMs are empowered to truly help their customers quickly and efficiently in accomplishing their organizational goals. So my background is a little bit different than most other CSMs here. Similar to other CSMs, I also worked in technology for about 13 years when I joined AWS. But what's a little bit different about me is that my background was almost entirely in military technology. I served in the US Navy for 6 years in a highly technical role. And then when I completed my military service in 2015, I immediately transitioned to the civilian workforce, but still overseeing the development of military technology. So I think my military background prepared me for success as a CSM because as a CSM, you do have to be highly organized, methodical at times. You need to have a high bar and close attention to detail. High levels of proactivity and ownership are also key here as a CSM. And while I am in no rush to return to the public sector, I do appreciate that the military helped prepare me for this role.
Awesome. So I would love to say thank you for your service. I'm sure people are going to be saying that in the chat as well. And then Dana, let's hear a little bit about you and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you winded up in the AWS CSM role.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dana Abe. I have been with AWS for a little over 4 years. I'm a principal customer solutions manager focused in the travel and hospitality space. Before joining AWS, I worked in technology for over 20 years across app dev, traditional infrastructure, as well as cloud teams, mostly focused in leadership roles related to product delivery, transformation, be it agile, cloud, DevOps. I actually developed a passion for AWS when I was designing and implementing a cloud center of excellence. And so I found the CSM role was a really good fit for my experience and a way to help others' cloud journey be less overwhelming and stressful. I think my technical acumen, program management, problem solving, and experience leading multidisciplinary teams through ambiguous situations prepared me for this role.
That's awesome. So, all right, Deanne, I feel like you're up on the block to start asking some questions.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. So Dana, the CSM role requires a diverse set of skills, including technical expertise, exceptional communication, and relationship building abilities. Can you take us through a day in the life, if there is such a thing that's a typical day of the life of an AWS CSM?
To your point, no 2 days are alike, but we do have activities that are typical. So I would say I might start the day leading a customer and our account team in preparing for business critical migration that's coming up. That might be orchestration planning, or it might be strategizing on people and process changes that are going to be needed to operate post go live. I might switch from there to a customer business review meeting where we discuss where they are in their cloud journey and AWS mechanisms and programs that I think will enable faster value realization for their cloud investment. From there, I might move over to helping our support team resolve a customer issue, or meet with our sales counterparts to discuss new opportunities. In those sessions, I'm really the voice of the customer. I'm an advocate, really explaining to the other teams what are my customers' priorities as well as challenges. And then finally, I might review my customers' strategic AWS portfolio of activities in the coming weeks and provide guidance and awareness across the account team.
Thank you so much for that answer.
It's awesome. It's a little bit of everything, but a lot of strategy.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So Mary, can you share some of the insights into a typical customer portfolio that an AWS CSM manages? How many customers do you support, and what strategies do you use to effectively manage, engage, and support such a large, diverse customer base?
Yeah, so there are different types of CSMs at AWS. You have account CSMs who are dedicated to one or more customers, like typically somewhere between 1 and 5. I have 2 rather large customers personally. And you're assigned within a specific industry like healthcare and life sciences, hospitality, digital native businesses, et cetera. You have scale CSMs who manage an entire portfolio of many customers within a specific industry, but those scale CSMs only focus on leading the most strategically significant efforts for those customers. So ruthless prioritization is key for those scale CSMs. And then you also have specialist CSMs who have very deep knowledge into specific areas like call centers. And so they focus on Amazon Connect. And those CSMs are brought in to support the customer and the AWS account team on their relevant journeys as they relate to that specialty. So the type of CSM that I am is a dedicated account CSM. I work with 2 rather large customers who fall under that category of digital native businesses who have grown their business within the cloud. Because my 2 customers are each so large and growing so rapidly, I have had to adopt a similar strategy to what the scale CSMs have, which is ruthless prioritization. I cannot be everywhere all the time. I cannot join every single meeting that's scheduled because sometimes meetings between my 2 customers conflict. I also can't lead every work effort that my customer is interested in. So I have to know how to ruthlessly prioritize my own time to where I can deliver the greatest impact for each of my customers. And then the rest, I collaborate within the team or I delegate to others so that it still gets accomplished. It just doesn't all fall on me.
So I love that. Thank you both for talking a little bit about like day in the life as well as how and what you do. In the chat, if you've engaged with a fellow CSM or you want to shout out your CSM from your AWS team, feel free to chat that in. And we're going to move into a couple of other questions as well. Deanne, over to you.
Dana, so can you explain how the AWS CSM role fits into the broader customer support and success structure at AWS? It's a really common question that I get from candidates. Particularly, I'm curious, how does the CSM work with other teams such as sales, support, account management to deliver a seamless experience for the customers?
Sure. The CSM role, I like to think of it as really the connective tissue that holds the broader customer support and success ecosystem together at AWS. We as CSMs are holistic cloud transformation advisors, helping customers drive innovation, accelerate their cloud journey, and hopefully realize their full value of cloud working backwards from their business goals. And so because we drive operational and execution excellence during the customer's journey, CSMs regularly interact and collaborate with product service teams. It could be to resolve adoption obstacles that have come up or provide input on product features. It's very collaborative and it relies on strong cross-functional relationships as well as an understanding of the AWS enablement programs that are there to deliver a seamless experience for our customers. It's definitely a dynamic role with a lot of hats, and it's very rewarding to see just the impact we have on our customers' cloud journey.
Thank you so much for that. Mary, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm glad Deanna said what she did because I also always describe CSMs as that connective tissue within the account team. I work with sales by immediately communicating any potential opportunities to them that I may identify as I'm leading different work streams alongside my customer. I work with AWS service teams by submitting product feature requests on behalf of a customer or by coordinating technical deep dives or escalation calls if needed. I may pull in concierge if one of the customers has complex questions on billing. What I always tell people is that as a CSM, it's my job to deeply understand the priorities of my customer and then to serve as a bulldozer to anything that could get in their way. So, whoever I need to pull into those discussions, whoever I need to escalate to or engage with, I'm going to be the one that is keeping the train on the tracks no matter what.
That's a great description.
I'm going to start calling you the bulldozer at work.
Leave it to a veteran to say, I'm the bulldozer of the account team.
Absolutely.
I think we have to now. So I'm going to turn the table. So Deanne, I want to ask you a question. Being that you do a lot of our interviewing and are the first point of contact in most cases, for those interested in pursuing a CSM role at AWS, what are some of the most important things they should keep in mind when preparing for the interview process? And also, are there any tips for candidates to stand out as a strong candidate?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that. So my name is Deanne Kane. I'm Senior Technical Recruiter at AWS, and I primarily, and for most of my time here, which has been almost 3 years, only covered the CSM team. So I love this team. I think it's an incredibly dynamic, unique position here. So I think it's a wonderful place for you to join. I think for the women interested in this role, the biggest thing that you can make sure is that you can talk through your experience from a techno-managerial lens. Right? You heard both Dana and Mary say you need a little bit of everything, right? So being able to walk through and talk about how your individual contributions are to your role, what you've done in the past. I think in my experience, I think as women, we tend to undersell our individual contributions to a project. And here at AWS, we're actually far less curious about what your team did. And we want you to take this opportunity to brag on your specific contribution to your role. Be unapologetic in that. And as a matter of fact, we really prefer that you use the pronoun I instead of we when you're talking about your experience. Having technical acumen in this world doesn't mean that you have to be a person who's been hands-on coding, right? It means, and if you have that experience, that's fantastic, but that's not what we're looking for in this role. Instead, we want you to be able to talk a bit about cloud computing. How do you define it? Explain the benefits and challenges of adoption. How would you describe the cloud to customers with limited cloud experience? Being able to describe a complex program or large-scale transformation initiative that you led and that resulted in a substantial business transformation. We not only want to know the how of what you did something, but the why, right? The business impact is as important as the actual steps that you take to get there. We also want you to have a general understanding of technical topics such as serverless, containers, microservices, data lakes, DevOps, CI/CD. Listen, you don't have to have everything in order to apply, right? This is a common thing about women. Women will have 80% of what the job description says and say, oh, but I don't have that 20, I can't apply. Our male counterparts would sometimes have 30% of that and be like, I'm the person for the job, right? So we're telling you, take that risk, but be able to talk about it. Brush up on your overall cloud or AWS knowledge. We don't require that you be familiar with AWS cloud. But, there's so much information on the internet, on AWS's platform that you can search in other places. Definitely take the time to try to understand it. Some of you will already come with deep AWS knowledge, and that's wonderful. But really, I'd say the biggest thing is being able to talk about your experience, right? You have people often who come to the interview process and they speak about their experience in a very broad manner. That doesn't tell us a lot about you, right? Think through what have you done? What have you contributed? I actually had a candidate recently who had never done AWS Cloud. And in the midst of her preparation for the interview, she went and got her cloud practitioner certificate, right? And that's not required every time, but that goes deeply to one of our most highly held leadership principles, which is learn and be curious, right? And so your ability to reach beyond what you already know is another big tip. If I could only tell candidates one thing, I would say, preparation for our interview process is key. If you get to an interview where you have pretty great experience, your resume tells us that's how you got through the gate. If you get to what their second step, which is an interview loop, It's a 5 1-hour interview conversations. They're deep conversations. I think that the difference between those who succeed and who don't succeed in our process is really based on that preparation, because it goes to how you articulate your experience. So really think through it, be able to talk through what you did. And like I said, feel free to brag on yourself. Our leadership principles, which I just mentioned, there's 16 of them. It can sound rather daunting, but if you think of them through a customer-facing lens, they become much more intuitive. Customer obsession is chief among all of them. But if you want to familiarize yourself with them before you come into the interview process, that's a really quick way to impress the interviewer that you're talking to, that you have done your research into what's going on to them. They thread through everything that we do here. And I think that, if you happen to know people, or obviously, now being in the She Builds community, leverage some of those connections. Connect if you can with current CSMs. Find out what you can about them. And always keep in mind, whether you're applying to this role or any other roles, job descriptions are Christmas wish lists, right? They're like, if I could build a human, which we may be on the verge of in the future, but we're not there yet, right? If I could build a human, they would have all of these things. It's almost never the case. The basic qualifications you should pay a ton of attention to. But if it looks, looking for that technical part, then do it. You can talk through your experience and build that lens. We're going to find out if you have enough of all the things that we need, or enough of the things that we need to do this role. But I think that there's people in this community who may underestimate what they have to offer. And I encourage you not to take that position, right? Be confident in what you can do and come into those interviews as prepared as possible.
And then when she says prepared, because she prepared me. And I had 14 pages documented for my loop of all the projects matching to all the LPs that I thought were going to be important. And it makes you feel so much more relaxed too, because it's a stressful time anytime you're interviewing. +1, as we do at Amazon, to preparing for your loop. Maybe that's a spinoff episode we should do. Preparation for our loops.
Yes.
I just actually, when I just moved, I recently took out this thick notepad of all my interview notes and all my preparation that I had done, plus everything that I had asked. And I'm like, I think I'm going to keep this. It might need to be framed.
Yeah.
Totally.
But I also would not leave this without saying we do get a lot of candidates, and it is very hard to follow up with every single one about every single thing. So please reach out to your network. If you know somebody who works at Amazon or AWS particularly, that you're like, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about this, or I want to see if you can help me. Make sure you reach out to the resources you have. I mean, feel free to connect with us, but just know that we can't, and I wish we could. Maybe we can soon, Deanne, with generative AI.
Maybe
every single person. I do want to make sure that I put that note out there. And that's one of the reasons we are doing this episode, to answer those questions live and to have this as a recording afterwards for everyone. Awesome. So we are going to bring some folks back live. I'm going to bring Deanne back first, because we have some questions that I think Deanne's going to be our best person to answer. So first question on the board, Deanne, is going to go to you. And what are the types of verticals or backgrounds that AWS is looking for right now currently in the CSM role?
Okay. So between last October and the January of this year, we went from a regional model to a vertical model, meaning that we used to look at all kinds of CSMs based on West, Central, Northeast, Southeast, and then we shifted to a vertical model. So verticals meaning the types of businesses we represent or work within: financial services, healthcare and life sciences, telco, media, entertainment, and games, greenfield. DNB, we know we're the land of acronyms. So DNB stands for digitally native businesses. Those are the ones that Mary talked about, right? They're companies born in the cloud. They're some of our most technically sophisticated customers. SMB, small, medium business, enterprise customers, and they can come from a number of different kinds of verticals: retail, hospitality, and tourism. So as you can hear, like, we cover it all: energy, semiconductors, you name it. We kind of cover it. If you come with deep experience in one vertical, that's okay. And as you know, right, like in Texas, we find a lot of oil, gas and oil, energy kind of customers. And sometimes a lot of people with that experience. Primarily what we're looking for is people with techno managerial experience, that you have technical acumen, particularly if you're able to speak to cloud, a bonus if you know AWS. And the managerial part speaks to the ability to interact with customers who may be technical or non-technical, right? We're often interacting with the C-suite level or just below that. And in those rooms, there's a lot of non-technical people, but they're very influential. They're keenly aware of the time and resources going to this project. And they want help translating the technical for that non-technical person, right? To understand that change management, product management, all those things that Mary and Dana highlighted about their job, right? Like you're kind of a jack of all trades, deeply rooted in technical and customer facing. So that can come from a lot of places. And we can look to find a number of, I personally right now have 20 different recs open at different levels in different cities. And so if you look like a good customer, or a good candidate, not customer, we're going to try to find a place for you, right? So don't be too limited to that. Some verticals really lean highly into what that background is, right? Really need to have healthcare and life sciences, really need to have retail experience, but not always. And so don't limit yourself in that way. I would say though, do pay attention when you're looking at those job descriptions, where those jobs are located, right? We are we do not have any virtual positions any longer, right? So we will move you in a number of cases if you are open to relocation, but kind of try to pay attention to where those positions are, because that could disqualify you in some way. If they're, you're applying from Oregon and this position is located in Virginia or Atlanta, right? If you're not willing to move. So just keep some of those things in mind.
Yeah. And if you have questions about relocation, I actually just went through it with Amazon in February. Super smooth, easy process. So, but without further ado, I have two people waiting backstage and one more question for Deanne before we bring our special guest back. So Deanne, here is our next question. And this is a question I know I've heard a ton, but does Amazon use AI to look at resumes?
Yeah, I think that this comes up a lot of the time. And I know so many people in various forums that I'm a participant in are assuming that they are getting disqualified because of keywords, right? That's not the case at Amazon. We certainly use techniques in terms of how to search through resumes, but we don't have computers. If you don't meet the basic qualifications on some of our recs, there are basic qualification answers that you have to give. If you don't meet the basic qualifications, you may be eliminated in that way preliminarily. For the most part, there are human beings putting eyes on every single resume here. It is a big, big part of our job. And I think for the CSM role, it's really important piece too, because it's sometimes hard to tell. Do you have a balance of both? Someone looks very technical. Do they have customer facing? They're very customer facing. They have product management. How technical are they, right? So the next thing that comes up is that conversation with me, right? So the first thing that you're going to do, you take your resume, like here's a little peek behind the curtain. I take your resume. It looks good. I send it on to the hiring manager. They review it and they say, yeah, this is a person I want to talk to. I'm then going to talk to you, right? And ask you some questions, find out some information before we move you through the process. Here's one other thing. I think we mentioned in the video about how intensive our process is. We don't lie about that. We know that it is. But we do a tremendous amount as a recruiter to try to support you through that process. I've been a recruiter at a number of different large companies in the country, and I have never had this as such a key part of my job requirement. And I really love it. All of our recruiters are really committed to it. So we really try to prep you and give you the tools to get your ability to talk, like I was talking about earlier, how to prepare for these interview processes so you have the best opportunity to articulate your experience clearly.
Awesome. So thank you for those questions. Keep questions coming in because we are bringing in Mary and Dana now, our CSMs, our awesome all-stars in the CSM role who have helped us through this. But this is your chance to ask questions. And I just want to do some shout outs while we're waiting for some questions to come in. So you have some fans in the audience. So we have some great coffee chats. Great to see you. We got some shout outs going on. So always love to see these different conversation pieces in there. Oh, and there's a shout out to our Greenfield CSM organization. So kudos to them representing in the room. Awesome. So I do see a question here and it's not letting me show it, but I'll just ask it. So personally, how do you measure success? So I guess Deanna or Mary, whoever wants to go through in your role, how are you personally measuring your success for that and for your career?
Dana, I can take that one first if you don't mind. Awesome. So I measure success in a couple different ways, and that in and of itself could probably be its own 1 hour coffee chat. So I'll try to keep it very succinct. One, and it's the primary one, is the impact to my customers. How have I helped them with accelerating a recent migration where they may have been blocked, aka how was I a bulldozer? Because apparently that's going to stick now. How did I help them with brainstorming on their Gen AI strategy and then aligning them with programs and resources to actually go all the way to production at scale? I also measure success by my impact to the overall organization that I work for. I've had so many people who have guided and mentored me just in my 2 years that I've been here. It's really easy to get so customer focused that we lose sight of the fact that we can also be scaling our knowledge and experience internally to help shape others within the CSM org or otherwise. So I feel a lot of fulfillment and high levels of success in mentorship and scaling my impact throughout the company.
Awesome. Dana, what would you add? Anything to add to that?
No, I think +1, Mary, I totally agree. It's really about have we helped our customers move forward in achieving their goals? And then internally, have we contributed to the culture that contributes to us? So it's very much a reciprocal thing that in addition to serving customers, we see each other as customers. And so very much focused on also constantly evolving the internal culture at AWS.
Awesome. So Dana, I'm gonna actually swing this one to you. What is 1 to 2 of the biggest challenges you face in the role? So I know that may change by industry and different things of that, but are there any that you would say are pretty generic across or specific to your area of focus?
I think for me, 1 to 2 biggest challenges. The first one would be understanding that every customer's at a different place in their cloud adoption journey. And we need to meet our customer where they are. We a lot of times know where they need to go and where they need to focus over the next couple of years, but we need to be on the journey with them as they begin to realize that. So that can be challenging, right? Because we see the very clear path for them, but they may not be at that point yet. So I think that can be a challenge.
Awesome. So Mary, anything to add from your 1 to 2 biggest challenges that you faced in the role?
So this goes back to what I said during the pre-recorded session, where you have to have this ruthless prioritization. I get really excited about stuff. So this is, I do this entirely to myself. I get really excited about all the awesome things that we're doing for our customers and internally, and I want to do all the things. And so for me, the biggest challenge is time and learning how to really manage my time, ruthlessly prioritize, and pick the things that are most impactful. Because I think there have been a few times in my career here that I've gotten really excited about a lot of things and I want to do all of it. And then when I'm about halfway through, I go, oh gosh, I bit off a little more than I could chew here. I need to get some help. So my biggest challenge is just time. We do really cool stuff here for our customers, and I want to have my, hand in everything. And I've had to learn along the way that that's just not possible for one person.
And you're getting more shout outs in the chat, by the way.
Thanks, Gina.
So there's actually, I guess this is kind of a question, but Hallie mentioned 14-page documentation for Loop. A little bit more detail on that is, so I had my conversation with Deanne, and then I had my phone screen, and then I had another follow-up with Deanne, and it was like, okay, get your stories together. There's a lot about the star format on YouTube, and maybe we do another editing, like another video of that, diving into it, but situation, task, action, and results. So for every project I did in the last 3 years prior to joining AWS, I went through and did that star format. And I even added areas of opportunity, which was what Deanne had told me to do, areas of opportunity of what I would change in that project. So all those pages were me just making sure I mentally went through all the projects I had participated in and was able to articulate them in under 5 minutes. So that's what I really shot for, especially because it is an intense process and you are a little bit, I would say, for me, I was a little stressed, but I tend to just get anxious and stressed in the beginning. So, but yeah, you want to be as prepared as you can. And I think it's the most I've ever prepared for an interview in my entire career. And it is I would say it made me feel the most confident throughout the process. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add. I think I'm the newest day oneer because I only have 700 day ones with Amazon, just shy of 2 years. So I just did the math.
I think that so what Brittany's talking about is that our interview format is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a methodology called behavioral questions looking for answers in the STAR format. That part is not unique to AWS. It's common in a lot of big tech companies, big pharma, sometimes consulting companies do it. If you have experience in that, you have a bit of a step ahead. I had never done it myself, right? So it's a very different way about thinking about how to represent your experience. And like Brittany, I probably have a legal pad somewhere in my house that has example STAR. Like I literally broke it down in like written out. And it's just what I told myself as I went through it. And I think that this is true still 3 years later, is that regardless of what the outcome was going to be of my Amazon interview, I was going to be a better interviewee forever, right? Because it's just a really different way of representing how you what your experience is and how you think about things. So if you want to, if before anything, if you want to look on that, look that up. You can look up AWS interview process and you'll find a ton of pages. You can also look up behavioral questions and STAR format, that you'll find so much information out there. And and this is, I'm a recruiter. Same format of interviewing happened to me, not a technical position. So, getting ahead of that. Here's the thing, the CSM role, we are all biased for, right? I think it's a fantastic role. It utilizes so many aspects of career experience, but there are so many positions within Amazon and we are hiring at speed right now, right? So take a look around, really try to read through the job description and see where you fit. Is the technical things, does it entice you? Look, there's so much information on the internet, right? And apply, just apply. And we'll sort of take it from there and we will guide you through this intensive process. The great thing to know is that interviewing and hiring at Amazon is a highly held job responsibility. You are not going to walk away from these conversations wondering, did these people learn anything about me, right? So we want people to be successful. We're all here to support you. Take a risk. Go and apply. It only takes one, right? And we have many ones that you could maybe be a fit for. So please, go on to our jobs page, start with CSM roles, and then look around from there. I think that there's so many great opportunities and we'd be so lucky to benefit from your participation.
I think the other thing, Deanne, that really was meaningful to me as a woman in IT is that freedom that you mentioned with brag about yourself. Tell us what you did. And I think the STAR format encourages that. But if you're not familiar with it, it can feel strange because you're used to saying my team, and not taking credit for those strategic directional things that you did to get your team there. And so I think that's a really important piece of feedback because writing those stories like you did, Brittany, forces you to focus on that and put yourself in front so that you're prepared to speak that way because it may not be natural for you.
Yeah, that's definitely something you have to prepare for sure. And it's a little uncomfortable, but I feel like I watched a lot of YouTube videos on STAR format and Amazon interview process.
Mm-hmm.
And with having Deanne and Josh, I'll shout out Josh Horan because he helped me a little bit too, which were people in my network, which was great. It definitely helps. We do have another question going on here. So thank you for the panel. Awesome. We're happy to be here. Someone's currently in the interview process for the CSM role and learning a ton, but would love to hear which LPs you feel like you utilize the most in your day-to-day. And I have a feeling I know for you two what it might be, but maybe we go around the full circle on which one's which. Mary, do you want to start off first with this one?
Yeah, so I will say that kind of a freebie at Amazon is customer obsession. It's at the core of everything that we do. It's very much a foundational LP where we obsess about our customers and we work backwards from our customers and our customers' goals to help them succeed. So customer obsession is kind of a freebie on the LP question. I think personally, the LPs that I lean on the most are bias for action. Right? Like I said, you're that bulldozer. It doesn't matter how the problem got there or, whatever. If there is a problem that is slowing or stopping my customer from being successful, I'm jumping in and I'm removing that problem. So you have to have high levels of bias for action in your role as a CSM. Also, ownership. right? Taking ownership. One of my account managers on one of my account teams that I support, something that he says often is everyone sweeps the floor here, right? No job is too big or too small for any of us. We are all capable and willing to take ownership of whatever the task is and then lean in on that bias for action to see it through.
+1, Mary. I would have gone in that order, which is really funny.
Great minds.
The other thing, though, that I think about in the CSM role is highest standards. So we're there to help our customer in execution and experience what we talked about when they first discussed a particular AWS service. So I feel personally committed to make sure that it's a fantastic experience and that at the end, they're getting the value that they need. And so I think holding ourselves internally to the highest standards is another big thing that the CSMs bring to the table.
All right, Deanne, do you have one that you use on your day-to-day the most?
Well, I probably would have said the same as Mary as well, but I think that a couple of the other ones that I find really unique to Amazon's culture are the ones where we kind of reiterate that we trust you, right? We are hiring you for your experience and we want you to lean into that. So ones that would reflect that are write a lot, right? Also think big. We want you to take your experience and really make an impact. And it's okay if it hasn't been done before. It might be better if it hasn't been done before. And that ability and willingness to use that experience that we've hired you for that reason, and then influence for your customers is key, right? I really appreciate here partnership. That's not reflecting one of our LPs, but I think that's one of our LPs, that what all of our LPs speak to, right? Are not only our partnerships with our customers, but our partnership with each other. And so, look, Mary came from the military, and you would say like, oh, I don't know, maybe like a lot of people, there's a lot of talk, I think, in the recruiting industry about veteran hiring. Amazon walks the walk. We really use that and put that in, and don't say like, oh, thank you, but you'll have to be in private or public sector for forever, right? And people come here with lots of experience from other careers, like their kids have gone to school and they're like, I'm not ready to be done working yet. We're like, bring it on. We'll take all that experience. So you don't have to be only rooted in this one narrow thing, because this company is broad. Our customers represent everything, right? And so those things really come through. You'll hear in the leadership principles, like we say them like that they're just like regular words, like, well, I did that because, bias for action. You'll learn them too, but it's a mark of a true Amazonian when, someone makes a mistake, like, oh, I'll take ownership for that. That's all me, right? That's how we talk here. And they're not the pretty things that we put on the wall. They're really in the core of how we interact with each other, prioritize our own work, and above all, how we address our customers.
Yeah, and so my favorite one to use is have backbone, disagree, and commit, because I tend to be in a lot of engagements with a lot of different teams. And sometimes it's really hard for everybody to just, like, you have differing opinions, and we really just have to make the decision to move fast. And that's why we are the world's largest startup, I believe was what I heard from one of our leaders on a recent show. It's like, we always are going to run as that startup model and make decisions and get things done. There's other things where you're talking about like two-way door decisions, and that's why we're allowed to have that backbone, disagree, and commit to what we're going to move forward with, which I love. And I will +1 everybody else's, because you start to have them as your taglines. That's what I've referred to them as, because they just naturally start flowing at about month 6, I would say. Yeah. I started having like the tagline of the different scenarios over there. So awesome. I'm just seeing any last minute questions in there. We may have time for one more. I'm just going to give it 1 second because I'm getting a couple. Well, I'm balancing between the three. I have a couple different ones coming through question-wise. Ladies on the call, did I miss any? All right. So I'm going to say we're going to bring it to a close then. I know we had quite a few people on, and we will have this up on the YouTube channel and LinkedIn for rewatch and a podcast in about 2 weeks. There is a lot to learn about the role, and there is the AWS She Builds network as well as your network on LinkedIn. So feel free, again, to reach out to your network to just make sure that you're asking questions about the role, asking questions about the process. Make sure you're being friendly and kind about it, because I'm already seeing 10 messages on LinkedIn. So it can be a little bit scary there. Oh, and we did get one last question. Oh, can I get advice on which role I would fit best? So I'm actually going to take this one, and it's because I think I had an interesting opportunity when I joined AWS. When you're in the interview process, you may have an opportunity where your interviewers say that you may be a good fit or a better fit for a different role. My experience with Deanne was I was interviewing for the CSM role, and Dana was on my interview thing, interviewing for the CSM role. I looped for the CSM role, and then it was brought to the attention, hey, you're actually potentially a better fit for our experience-based acceleration lead role, which we have open in the same area. Would you be interested in doing a loop for that kind of thing? Which I think it's one of the superpowers our recruiting team has, is being able to like fit you into the right role and get you into the right role. The other thing is the career path is awesome too, because I know some of our CSMs will go into more technical as a solutions architect, or they may go into more sales and an account manager role. So as far as a fit situation, as you're in the interview process, you may be molded or asked if something is a better fit for you or brought to your attention. I don't know, Deanne, if there's any other stories or thoughts you have on that one too.
I think the secondary question is that there are a lot of CSM roles. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can't differentiate them all, right? They wouldn't all make sense of you. So apply. If we think you're a good fit for a role and you're in a different location, or we know that role is closing and other ones are happening, we'll move you to another role. Don't worry about which CSM role. You can see in the preferred qualifications, if a particular vertical background, it doesn't say required, it'll say preferred, right? Those maybe give you some differentiation, but along the way, I would just apply and then trust us as much as you can for faceless, nameless people to put you in the right place, right? So we'll take a look at that. It is very hard to differentiate that. You'll see the same thing if you look for solutions architect roles, right? There's so many of them, you couldn't possibly tell which one was which. If you think you're a good fit for the role, just go ahead and apply to one. We'll move you if we figure somewhere else. And keep paying attention on your job board for your progress. We're not going to be able to reach back out to you and tell you why. And if you go through the interview process, we're only going to be able to give you results. We're not going to be able to say, like, you were this close, you missed this kind of thing. So we'll talk you through all of that, but pay attention to that. And don't get panicked if like that job closed, but I'm on this other one that I didn't see. That's us doing the magic behind the curtain.
Yeah. It is a big production for sure. Awesome. Well, with that, I know we're at time. Feel free to leave additional comments if you have other things you would like us to deep dive into. I'm more than happy. I'm sorry if you can hear Bean. She wanted to make sure her voice was heard on our live stream to just say hi. And she's an adorable little dog. So thank you, ladies, for all of your time and preparation for this and just dedicating additional things outside of your core roles to give back to our community and have them be able to hear more about the role and what potential it has. So with that, everyone have a great Friday, and thank you all for joining.
Thanks so much for your
Bye-bye.